It's a Mediterranean brunch today in the sartorial kitchen. Kicking things off with some Greek roasted potatoes with lemon and feta. Then it's an Italian-inspired frittata with panchetta, sun-dried tomatoes, and shaved Asiago on top. And last but not least, my lemon ricotta coffee cake with toasted almonds. So why don't you pull up a chair and dine with me?
Welcome back, everybody. We're in for a treat today because we are going to the Mediterranean for a fun brunch that I am hosting over my friend Ruth's. And I'm starting off with a lemon ricotta coffee cake. Does that not sound good or what? So I've already got a stick and a fourth of softened butter in here. I'm adding a cup of sugar. Starting with my wet ingredients first. I always like to do that first and then I can control the dry. I also need 3 eggs. Got them right here. I want to be careful with these eggs. Make sure I don't get any eggshells in here. That would be terrible. And one more. Now let's mix this baby up. Just come in here and pop the yolks and just cream everything together until you get a nice kind of start of the batter. Get that butter incorporated to the sugar and the eggs. And whip it really good. Incorporate a lot of air into those eggs. That's going to really help this rise later. Alright, that looks pretty good, I think. This is going to be a nice, light, refreshing cake. I have a couple other things to add before we move on to the dry ingredients, some flavorings here. Got some almond extract. I'm going to do about a half teaspoon of that. This is really strong, so unlike vanilla, you don't want to use as much of it. But it's just going to play really nicely with the lemon that we're doing here. And speaking of lemon, I've got my lemon right here. Just one little lemon. Give it a good roll to release those juices, because I'm going to be juicing it as well. But I also want to catch some of that zest. You know me, when I'm working with lemons, I always like to incorporate the zest. And need about a tablespoon of the zest. So I'm going to go ahead and zest this whole thing. That should be plenty. And always when you're zesting the lemon, make sure that you're just getting that little yellow outer part and not down into the pith, which is really bitter and would ruin this cake. Alright. That looks pretty good. Oh, that zest is so fragrant. I love it. And then you always check the back for stragglers. Make sure that gets in there too. And now we're ready to juice this baby. Just cut it in half. If you want, you can juice it by hand. Just make sure you watch for the seeds. We don't want seeds in here. But I've got a fancy little juicer here that I got for Christmas. And I only need half this lemon, I think. It's pretty juicy. I want this to be nice and tart, but not overly acidic. And we'll set that aside. Save this guy for myself. And the rest of our wet ingredients, some ricotta cheese. You can't have lemon ricotta cheesecake without ricotta cheese. And I need a whole cup of this. Sounds like a lot, but that's going to make this cake nice and moist and soft. It's going to be nice and flavorful, and I love ricotta cheese about as much as I love lemon, so okay, that's pretty good. The rest of this I'm going to save to do with my frittata later. And I also need 2 tablespoons of sour cream, and that's just, again, going to add to the richness and make sure everything is nice and moist. And that's going to be not quite half this container, but almost. And plop that right in. When I was planning this season, this is the first episode that came to mind. I wanted to do a Tuscan brunch. I had this coffee cake in mind first off, and then I kind of planned around that. Unfortunately, we didn't get around to getting together for this to be the premiere, but we're getting together now. A bunch of my friends are coming. It's going to be a fun little party, and I'm just super excited. So I'm going to go ahead and incorporate the rest of this. Just look at that color. It's a gorgeous kind of canary yellow. Oh, that's just beautiful. Yes. Okay, I think we are ready for the dry ingredients. Alright, on to my dry ingredients. I've already got my handy dandy sifter out here. I've gotten rid of my whisk temporarily. Now I'm going to come in here and get some flour. I need a whole cup. So I just kind of come in here. You can overfill the cup and then just level it off, and then you've got a perfect measure. And then I also need a 1/4 cup, which is about one of my little scoops here. Perfect. Oh yes. I also need some baking powder. So I'm going to make sure that this rises beautifully. A whole tablespoon of that. Just kind of level that off as well. You want to be very precise with the dry ingredients, or it's really going to throw off your mixture. And then I also need a pinch of salt. Nice generous amount of salt. Salt in desserts, very necessary. The salt brings out the natural flavors of everything. And then of course I just come in here and give this a little tap. Removes all the lumps from the flour and mixes all of our dry ingredients together. Oh, so good. Now I switch from the whisk to a spatula. I like using a spatula for the dry ingredients as opposed to the whisk because you prevent overmixing the flour. When you overmix the flour, that gluten starts to overdevelop, and then you get a really dense, chewy product. And what I do is I just kind of turn the bowl, and I come underneath and get the wet and fold it over the dry until everything starts to come together. And this is another reason I sift everything. I don't have a bunch of lumpy flour that I gotta pound through. I just have to incorporate what flour I have into my wet. And literally once it comes together, you're finished. And it's not a bunch of, not a big mess. Make sure you come along the sides of the bowl as well and get all of that incorporated. This looks so good. So good, super excited for this. Yes, I like that. Alright, I think we're good to go. So I've got my little springform pan here. This is kind of a medium size. I want this to kind of cook up nice and high, so I'm not using my big one. And I want to prep this a little bit to make sure that my cake is going to come out clean. I'm just going to spray it down. This is just an olive oil spray. You can use whatever you have. And we are ready to dump in the batter. Alright, my pan is greased. Our batter has come together. And I'm just going to dump that right in. Make sure we scrape the sides of the bowl and get every last bit of this. Ah, so exciting. And I'm using the springform pan, so when it's done, I can just pull the sides, the ring off, and it'll be easier to get it out. And it'll be easier to serve on that little tray. I just want to make sure I'm not leaving behind any batter. Oh yes, that's gorgeous. It smells so good. You really smell that lemon and the almond. I'm just going to come in here with my spatula and smooth this out so it's a nice even layer all the way across. I want to make sure that this bakes evenly. Beautiful. And then I have one more thing just to really jazz up this baby and really play into that almond, and that is sliced almonds. And I'm just using some plain sliced almonds. I know normally you would like to use toasted nuts, but this is going to bake off in the oven, which is going to allow these to get toasted. So I wanted to do the plain, and I'm just going to kind of fan them out. Just a nice little sprinkling all the way around. I'm going to start kind of outside and work my way in. It's going to look gorgeous on top too, and these almonds get nice and crisp and the cake bakes up. So exciting. And it's going to look fancy, like you bought this from a fancy bakery, but you made it yourself. And just a few more for good measure. Perfect. Look at this. Doesn't that look gorgeous? And then if you want, you can just kind of come in here. I'm going to press them down a little bit just to make sure they're actually in kind of that top layer of the batter and not just poking out on top. Beautiful. Yes. Okay. Now I've already preheated my oven, 350 degrees. This is going to bake for about 45 to 50 minutes or until a toothpick comes out clean, and I will see you guys then. Alright everybody, our cake is ready to come out. Oh yes, look at this. It's just got nice and golden brown on top. The sides have some good color to it. Those almonds are nice and toasted. I'm going to set this on my rack here to let some of the air circulate underneath, and it's going to cool evenly. While this was in the oven, I have been wrapping up some prosciutto and melon, which I'm also taking with me. And once this cools down, I'll pack everything up and we will head to Ruth's. I will see you there. Guys, we're here. I've got all my goodies and that cake that you saw me make earlier. And I'm ready to feast it up. Alright guys, I've got some pancetta here in this skillet. We're getting started on our frittata. I want to do that first because it's going to take the longest. So a frittata, it's basically like an omelet, but instead of trying to flip it over, you just bake it in the oven. Easy peasy. So I've got my pancetta here rendering down. Listen to that sizzle. So pancetta, if you've never had it before, it's basically bacon, but it's how Italians do bacon. They cure their pork belly a little differently. It's not smoked like a lot of American bacon is. And it has nice bits of fat in there that's just going to render down and become a beautiful canvas for the rest of our fillers. And speaking of fillers, I've got some onion here that I have begun dicing up. You've seen me cut onions before, you're going to see it again. You know, you just come through lengthwise and then you come down again. And then a third time and you get nice little dices. And I'm dicing this pretty small because I want to make sure that it all cooks the same. I'm going to use about half of this onion for the frittata, and then I'm going to save some to do with my crispy Grecian potatoes. Very excited about that. And I've also got some sun-dried tomatoes here. It's going to be another one of our ingredients. There's some very classic kind of Italian ingredients here, and I don't need a ton of these. I'm just going to pull out, depending on how big they are, about 6 or 7 maybe, and we'll just kind of chop those up. I think that looks good. And I love the tomatoes. It's just really like nice concentrated flavor. You have that preserving oil. These I'm just going to kind of cut into like little strips. Alright guys, my bacon is rendering down. I'm going to go ahead and start on these eggs here. I'm going to get fancy here and double fist it. You just want to be really careful that you watch for eggshells. We do not want eggshells in our frittata. I'm using 8 eggs here. That will be just plenty once I add some of my other ingredients here and kind of stir everything up. We're going to start here with some salt and pepper. Eggs are pretty bland, so you want to season them generously. And some pepper here. Alright, that's good. Then I've got the rest of my ricotta cheese from the coffee cake. I'm just going to plop that right in. Ooh, that's going to make these eggs really moist and fluffy and tender. And then just come in here. I start by busting up the yolks first. And then just give it a nice whisk. And what I want to do is incorporate the whites and the yolks and make sure that ricotta is broken down nicely. But I'm also whipping a lot of air into these eggs, and that air is going to be what really makes this rise. Once we throw this in the oven, it's just going to puff up and get really big and beautiful and browned on top. And I think that looks pretty good. Alright, I'm throwing in my onions now. Maybe just a little more. The rest are going to be for the potatoes. I'm going to let these get nice and cook down. They're going to pick up a lot of flavor from the fat of the pancetta, and they're just going to get really succulent and delicious. And we're going to season these as well. Some little salt and a little pepper. I start with the pancetta because it takes a little longer to render down, and then the onions will just get nice and soft. Okay. Now lastly, we throw in our sun-dried tomatoes. Now sun-dried tomatoes, they're already ready to eat, so I'm not really cooking them much at all. I just want to kind of marry them with some of these other flavors here real quick before we throw in our eggs. Just kind of get them coated in that lovely pancetta fat as well. And then some of the oils from the preserved tomatoes kind of get in here and just makes a nice flavorful little mixture here. Alright, that smells delicious. Alright, time to throw in the eggs. And I do this on the stove while everything is still hot. Make sure we get all the egg out of here. Beautiful. And then I just kind of, I'm going to stir this around just a little real quick, just to make sure we're going to get a nice bite of everything in each piece of frittata. And come along the side here, just to make sure we get a nice little lip on this. And there she goes. We're going to throw this in the oven. I've already preheated it to 350 degrees. It's going to cook for about 45 to 50 minutes. Until the egg is cooked through, we will check on that shortly. And until then, we will move on to our potatoes. Alright guys, potato time. The frittata is cooking. It's got about half an hour left. We're going to come in here with our potatoes. I'm making some crispy Grecian potatoes. It's going to have lemon and feta. It's going to be so good. And I got these little baby potatoes. I like them. The skin is thin, so you can leave it on. And they're different colors, so it's going to be visually stunning. And then I'm just going to kind of half these, I think. Some of the bigger ones you can kind of cut smaller if you want. Alright guys, the last of my potatoes here. Our oil should be good and hot, but if you're not sure, take just a little water and there we go. I'm going to be very careful dropping these in. I do not want to splash oil all over myself. And I'm going to immediately come in here with some salt and pepper. Potatoes are naturally bland and they need all the help you can get. But I love how they're very sponge-like. They can take a lot of different flavors. I may be seasoning these again at some point, but I just want to get them started. I'm going to come in here with my spoon. I'm going to stir these around. I just want to make sure all of these are coated in my oil. And this is a shallow fry. Literally just did enough oil to cover the bottom of the skillet, and that's just to keep this from sticking. And that's about it. And then we'll just let these go. The trick to really crispy potatoes, a lot of people, they just keep stirring and stirring and stirring. No, leave them alone. It's almost like a steak. Let them go on one side for a little while, and then turn them over. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. We got our drinks, the food's about ready to come out. This is a lovely little flavored coffee, some half and half, some Shankies, which is a butterscotch whiskey. Bottoms up. Oh yeah. I don't do coffee a lot, but when you have beautiful things like this to flavor it with, and I love butterscotch. Alright guys, I'm ready to throw these onions in. They're a lot smaller, they're not going to take as long to cook, so I have waited on those to go in. And then I've got my garlic here too, but that takes even less time, so I do not want that in just yet. That garlic is minced and it literally takes a minute. Any longer than that and it burns, and there's nothing worse than burnt garlic. And I'm just going to swirl this around. I want those onions to kind of reduce. And these potatoes are getting nice and crispy. I am super excited. Alright guys. Woo! Check this baby out. Oh, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Golden brown. I'm going to shave. I've got some nice pecorino. I'm going to shave on top. This is going to be the last little thing here for this frittata. I just wanted to have a nice little cheesy crust on top. Oh yeah, that looks so good. And then I'm going to pop this back in the oven. It's got about 5 or so minutes left. And we will be ready to begin. Alright, time for the garlic. Just about a teaspoon. I love my garlic. This is my preserved garlic, my minced garlic. And I'm going to turn this off. This is already hot enough that it's going to cook my garlic through. And I don't have to worry about it burning. And then I mentioned my lemon. I've got that right here. I'm going to zest this right into the potatoes, and I want it to get into that oil and everything. And when that zest hits the oil, it's just going to become nice and fragrant. It's really going to fill this room with a just burst of sunshine. And I'm only going to zest about half of this. Zest is pretty strong. I just wanted to really give these potatoes a nice zing. And the zest too, the lemon and everything, really cuts through the fat and richness of all of this and just really lightens it up. And then of course we always check for stragglers. Beautiful. Alright, let's finish stirring these around just to get that zest incorporated. And I would say these guys are ready to come off. I've got a little dish here already, and we're just going to plop these right in. Make sure we get all the onions and garlic out of here. And then I have one last thing for these potatoes to really bring home the Greek of it all. And that is feta. And this is just crumbled feta. And I'm going to take some while this is still hot. And I'm just going to crumble it right on top. Just one nice little dusting. And I think our frittata is also ready to come out. And I think we are ready to plate up. Guys, I finished plating up. Everything looks so good. I think I'm going to start with the frittata. I'm most excited about that. I just want to make sure I get a nice big bite here. Look at that, nice and golden brown. So definitely, I get the creaminess from the ricotta, the pancetta. It's nice and fatty and flavorful. The sun-dried tomatoes, a little sweet, a little acidic. So good. Now these potatoes. Nice little bit of crunch. You really pick up that lemon. The feta just kind of melts in your mouth. Now, of course, my coffee cake. I am most excited about that. And you can see the sponge is nice and soft and moist. Nice little crunch from the almonds on top. It's nice and soft. You get a little bit of that almond and the lemon. So good. My prosciutto wrapped melons, I just drizzled with a little honey and some black pepper, just to really add a little savory note. Yeah. I love the prosciutto. It's nice and salty. The honey and the black pepper, everything just kind of marries together nicely. But I'm going to leave you guys for now and finish up here. But I thank you for joining me as always. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time. Bon appétit.